In a world where hypnosis podcasts come and go, one man is here to deliver a knockout, no-holds-barred approach and deliver electrifying interviews with the world's top experts so you can discover the secrets to their success. Introducing the Hawaii Hypnosis Podcast. Subscribe to the newsletter and get instant access to 4 free skill-building audios that utilize a revolutionary hypnotic approach to improve your skills from the inside out. It's practically bulletproof. As a member of Hawaii Hypnosis, you'll join the ranks of the movers and shakers in the hypnosis and NLP community and discover how to significantly improve your skills from the inside out.
Aloha, everyone. This is Antonio Perez with HawaiiHypnosis.org. I just want to say thanks for taking place in this live teleseminar with Richard Nongard of SubliminalScience.com. Richard, thanks for jumping on the call today.
No, it's always fun to do a teleseminar with you. We did one a few weeks ago and gave away a lot of really good content, and that's my goal tonight, to pass along some real useful ideas to people who are working in the area of weight control.
Yeah, weight control, from what I've seen, is one of weight loss hypnosis is one of the more profitable hypnosis niches.
Well, it is truly profitable, but it's only profitable if you're good at it, because referrals and success go hand in hand, and so it can be very lucrative. It can be very profitable. It can be a great way to earn a living providing services. We have 300 million people in our country, give or take, and about 100 million of those people are obese, and another 100 million are overweight. So it's fishing in a stocked pond. In other words, 2 out of 3 people who sees an ad for a hypnosis clinic can benefit from the services that are offered if we're just looking at the issue of weight. And it's an area where people are genuinely interested in receiving help, and it's an area where hypnosis is at the forefront. There's been a lot of really good press, a lot of good sort of talk shows, the Oprah Winfrey type of shows over the last couple of months that have featured hypnotherapy as a tool for achieving weight loss. So people are actually looking for hypnosis weight loss, and 2 out of 3 people actually can benefit from the services that a professional hypnotist provides. So if a hypnotist gets good at it, they can actually earn a pretty good living.
Living out here in Hawaii, everybody on the call, I'm not sure what kind of demographics you have for people that are overweight, but out here in Hawaii, as many of you would imagine, the weight control is a big issue, especially with a lot of the Polynesian cultures, a lot of the plate lunches, the local mocos, as Richard knows what they are. A lot of this food can put some serious weight on you.
Yep. Actually, Hawaii is one of the places in our country that's had really the highest levels of obesity rates. But it's really amazing. The Centers for Disease Control actually has an obesity map, and this is actually worth looking at. Just go to Google and type in CDC obesity map. And the obesity map that the CDC has actually is put together in a PowerPoint presentation on their website. And so you can actually see the rates of obesity as they increase state by state over the last 30 years. And it's really pretty alarming to see how the weight is piling on really all over the country. And I think there's only one state, if I remember, or 2 states where obesity isn't considered to be a serious epidemic, and that's actually Colorado, and I can't remember the other state, but it may be Utah, or maybe Idaho, or something else out west. But Colorado is definitely the thinnest state. And last week I was actually in Alabama, and Alabama is one of the heaviest states, but all of the states every day get fatter and fatter and fatter. And it's not just something in the U.S. either. I've traveled all over the world. I've been to, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Asia, South America, and And everywhere I go, it's really being addressed as a serious issue. And so the importance of it certainly is there. The role of the hypnotist in the obesity epidemic is really a pretty profound role, because there are a lot of fad diets out there, and dieting never works. Anything that's based on restrict and then a reward that comes from succeeding at your goal, which is what a diet's all about, going back to what it is you used to do, never works. And there have been lots of obesity supplements and nutritional, formulations and meal replacements and those sorts of things. But those always have short-term results as well. One of the things that's interesting about dieting is that most people not only gain the weight back after a period of time, but they gain more weight than the weight they lost. So it becomes really frustrating for them. And hypnotherapy is one of the few tools that I know that really addresses the true formula for success in weight loss. And that formula is pretty simple. The formula, there is really only one formula that works for lasting weight loss, and that is some combination, it's going to be different for each person, but some combination of increasing physical activity and decreasing not the quantity, but decreasing the bad quality of food. And hypnosis is a great tool for changing preferences, for changing habits, for changing likes and dislikes, for changing mindless patterns of eating, emotionally based eating, and all of these things that diets really fail to address. And so, we have this great opportunity with, 2/3 of the people being potential clients, but then we have truly useful tools that we can use to help people be successful in the long run.
Join the ranks of the movers and shakers in the hypnosis and NLP community. Subscribe to the newsletter and discover why this podcast is taking the world by storm.
I'm curious, why do current approaches in hypnotherapy often fail? And what's a good way to structure a program that isn't dependent on restriction?
Yeah, well, I'm actually doing a webinar that starts, I think, on July 22nd. What I'm going to teach in that webinar is the 6-session protocol that I use with my clients for weight loss. And I'll share the outline with you because that's really the way to structure hypnotherapy to avoid failure. I think a lot of new hypnotists are often sort of entranced by the marvelous results of hypnosis they've heard about. And so a lot of new hypnotists offer weight loss services, and what they really offer is, come into my office, I'll hypnotize you, you'll lose weight, I'll collect my fee, and you'll go on your merry way and lose weight. And hypnosis can be a real useful tool in a single session for actually helping a person make change. But when we're dealing with something like weight loss, where we're dealing with something that really transcends so many different areas of life. And I've found that a hypnosis session dedicated to each of those areas of life really puts somebody on the correct path rather than one single session. And so I provide to my clients a 6-session program. And in those 6 sessions, I do what my clients don't expect. In the first session, I don't have them take anything away. You see, my clients have failed at weight loss before because they've had to stop eating something or because they've had to take away, something they truly loved, whatever it is. I'm just going to use Snicker bars or Mars bars as the example here. And they think that they're going to be have to eat nothing but, kale and rhubarb. And so in my first session, I really surprised my clients by giving them a very powerful hypnotic suggestion. There's 2 primary suggestions I give in my first session. One, that they'll actually find it's easy to lose weight, not by taking anything away from their diet, but by adding to their diet. And so I have them add to their diet, and I give them the suggestion that they'll simply add to their diet each day a half a pound of cut-up fruit and a half a pound of cut-up vegetables. Now, sometimes people say, a half a pound, that's way too much. Remember, one apple can weigh half a pound, so we're really not talking about adding very much. The idea here is that to be truly successful at weight loss, What's most important is the nutrient density of the calories that we choose to eat. It's not how many calories we eat, it's what's in those calories that's most important. So anytime we go on a diet that restricts intake, you always have the client set up for failure. And when we, instead of teaching them to take something away from their diet that they may have liked in that first session, when we give them the freedom to make any choice they want, as long as they follow the suggestion to add those things to their diet, what happens is their nutritional needs are met, and it cuts craving, and it helps a person, by adding healthy foods to the diet, actually begin to paradoxically lose weight. The other suggestion I give my clients, one of the things I want to make clear is I do not take clients who need to lose 20 pounds so they will look better at, let's say their daughter's wedding in June, or, they want to make their husband's new wife jealous, so when they go to the family reunion or whatever it is they're going to in a couple of months, they want to lose 12 pounds. The clients who I've historically worked with are actually severely obese. I tend to work with these 400-pound guys. They're 45 years old. A lot of them are on disability. They've been ruled out as a candidate for bariatric surgery. When they come to me, the hypnotist is the last person they call. It's almost like calling the witch doctor. And they're desperate because they're 45, they're 400 pounds overweight, and if they don't lose half their body weight in the next 18 months, they die. And those are the clients I've worked with. I actually worked with a guy who was the fattest man in America at one point. He was on Oprah Winfrey's show. When I got him as a client, he was down to 711 pounds. And those types of clients, for them, it's a life and death situation. The other thing, in addition to adding to their diet, that's important is to begin to increase their activity. If you remember Jared in the Subway commercials, remember Jared lost all that weight?
Yeah,
and
actually,
everyone thinks Jared lost weight because...
Yeah, I was going to say the funny little anecdote. He used to live right next to my mom, not too, a couple years ago.
I forgot, we actually talked about that once before. It's amazing how small the world really is.
Yeah.
But Jared didn't lose the weight because he was eating Subway sandwiches. Jared lost the weight despite eating Subway sandwiches. Jared lost the weight because, if you remember the original commercial, he walked to Subway each morning and he walked back to Subway each afternoon. And so it was increasing his activity level that helped him to achieve success. I do not tell my clients to exercise. That'll chase them out the door. But I do begin right away talking about increasing activity level, and I begin giving them hypnotic suggestions to do that. And I give every client who comes in my office a pedometer, every one of them. And I actually give them a pedometer. I buy them in quantity. You can just go to Google and type in, a lot of laser pedometers. You can buy them for about $6, $7 a piece. And, I'll buy, a box of 25 or 30 of them. And then I give them I buy red pedometers. And I give them all to my clients. And I give them this suggestion. Will somebody take more steps today than yesterday, more steps tomorrow than today, more steps the next day than tomorrow, and continue to increase their steps until they reach 10,000 steps per day? And I give them that pedometer. I give them the suggestion. They'll begin using that pedometer. They'll put it on in the morning, and they'll log their results. And I really want my clients to begin the process of beginning to add activity to their lifestyle as well. Because a lot of these folks have given up. When that 711-pound client walked, there was no way he could have walked 10,000 steps, but he wasn't even walking 100 steps because it was too difficult for him to do so. And so beginning to see the numerical increase each day of being able to add steps is I think essential for success. One of the other reasons why I think hypnosis, the current trend, are sort of unsuccessful is there's a big trend right now to simply mimic other medical processes. For example, if a person has bariatric surgery, what that does is that reduces the size of their stomach so they simply can't consume as much food. And that's, again, a restrictive process. And the outcome of that can be that a person follows the same pattern of reward and restriction. Now, I know some of the people personally who are offering those sort of hypnotic virtual surgeries, and some of them are really quite skilled. And they've coupled what really is a great marketing concept with not only a process or a ritual that begins a transformation and a change, but also some real good suggestions and good information. So that's certainly not something I'm opposed to. I just think that, if you seek out a trainer, seek out one who is comprehensive in his approach, because I see every now and then people post on the internet, hey, anyone have a script for a virtual bariatric surgery process? And, obviously these aren't people who have received training, and they think that, by simply restricting intake, people are going to be successful. And that is not what leads to success. What leads to success is changing our clients' preferences, helping them to make healthy choices, and to truly enter a new chapter of life where food has an entirely different meaning to them, and the end result is life rather than death. So, I think there's some other, there are sort of some other things that really aren't current trends in hypnosis, but there's so much research in the last couple of years on what really is effective for weight loss. And a lot of hypnotherapists have really failed to incorporate that, continuing to, simply use basic direct suggestion or metaphor or indirect suggestion that really doesn't teach our client. I think it's important to actually teach our client how to be successful.
Yeah, I think with a lot of people that are overweight, it's not something that just happened overnight. In some cases it has, but with a lot of people that are extremely overweight, there's a lot. They basically learn that pattern over years and years. And you need to teach them a completely new way of doing it. It's not a overnight fix.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the interesting thing about hypnotists. A lot of hypnotists have the expectation I'm going to hypnotize them to make healthy choices and eat things that are good for them. But if our client doesn't know how to make those choices and how to prepare those foods, they won't. No matter how much we hypnotize them, we literally actually have to teach them how to eat healthy food. And fortunately, in my background, and those who came to the Dallas Hypnosis Convention got a taste of it, because I was actually the chef for our dinner, and everyone was amazed that I could actually cook a gourmet meal for 80 people, which I did. And if you go to YouTube, you can type in Bongard recipe, and you can actually find me in my chef hat doing some cooking recipes, or doing some cooking demonstrations on my YouTube channel. And the reason those are there are really simple. I can hypnotize people to make healthy choices all day long, but unless I actually teach them how to do it, they're not going to experience success. In my Success Fit program, which is a program I sell to people who want to lose weight, the first DVD is me teaching them things that they didn't know about food. The second CD and the third CD are 4 different hypnosis sessions. And then the fourth disc is a DVD that's actually me in the kitchen with my chef hat on, teaching them how to prepare breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and breakfast that are healthy. Because unless we actually teach people skills and provide them with that information, no matter how good a hypnotist we are, if we don't teach them to do something different, they simply won't know how to do something different. So any comprehensive program has to have a strong educational component. And that's what I do in my second session with people, is I teach them what they need to know to be successful. And it's in that second session that we begin to look at changes. And sometimes people say, oh, but I don't like, I'm just throwing this out, for example, broccoli. I like Mars bars. Well, that's why you're at a hypnotist office. Part of my job is to hypnotize you to change your preferences. And so I do. And I work to help people change unhealthy preferences that prefer unhealthy foods, so that they begin to prefer healthy foods. And in my third, fourth, and fifth session, I typically, monitor their progress, provide them with, coaching and different ideas that they can continue to use in their own life between sessions. And in that sixth session, it's usually a pretty good celebration, because by now they're well on their way to achieving significant success.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, how were your success rates to begin with when you really started to get into using hypnosis for weight loss? Did you have the same structure as in 6 sessions, or was it much different?
Well, yeah, let me share with you my background. It's really kind of interesting or funny, sort of. I've always been doing weight loss. In fact, weight loss was the first thing I did in the entire field of counseling, and I'm licensed as a counselor as well. And my first job was actually when I was in college. There was an ad in the newspaper, and it basically said, "Hey, do you have no experience? Are you good with people? Do you want us to train you?" And what it did was. What it was actually Nutrisystem. This was back in the late 1980s, and they were looking. That was back when Nutrisystem used to have corner stores where people would come in and buy their food. Every week, you would weigh in, buy your food, and you'd have a 30-minute consult in a classroom with a behavioral modification coach, and that was me. So when I finished graduate school, that was really the only experience I had. So I went to work for William Rader's Eating Disorder Treatment Program, which was an inpatient treatment program for anorexia, bulimia, anorexia, other eating disorders. And so I had, those experiences early on, and I was trained in hypnosis when I was in graduate school. And so by the time I began offering hypnotherapy in private practice, I already had recognized the need for a structured program to address the severity of it, rather than simply trying to figure out, hey, what would you like to work on today? Or, hey, I can do this in one session. So I've always been pretty successful with my weight loss clients, but I've had from early on, and it was purely accidentally, I had some really good training in systems for weight loss, rather than trying to look at the magic solution for weight loss. And my clients do real well. One of the cool things about working with a guy who loses 400 pounds, or loses 200 pounds of his 400 pounds, when they lose half their body weight, they're really pretty interesting to work with, because at the end of 18 or 24 months, or whatever the time period is, what you have somebody who people don't even recognize on the street anymore, and their entire personality changes. They're no longer living under a death sentence. But not only emotionally are they changed, but even socially, they're transformed and they're changed, and that can be really difficult for a person. It often isn't exactly as they anticipated or expected to be. So those psychological and social aspects of the catastrophically obese person are really interesting to work with as well.
Yeah, I would imagine it's almost like the like a girl that goes out and gets breast augmentation to make herself feel better. And where she might look totally different, but she might still have the same internal. She might still feel like the same person from before the breast augmentation.
Yeah, my obese clients, they have this thought of what it will be like, and then they find that things are different than they expected. And anytime any of us in life have expectations, and reality is different than those expectations, regardless of the cause, it's stressful to us. And with hypnosis, we have a great opportunity to help people continue their success in the long run, because I can't think of a better strategy for stress management than even catastrophic stress than hypnotherapy. So, and I spend a lot of time teaching my clients, those skills of that's one of the things I think we have to teach them. We have to teach them how to handle life on life's terms, and life's terms sometimes are difficult.
Yeah, life will constantly throw curveballs. I want to bring up before I forget, anybody that's listening to this, we're giving away a free PDF. It's a recipes book from Richard Nongard's Success Fit program. So if you want it, go ahead and email me, Antonio at hawaiihypnosis.org, and I can get that to you.
Yeah, and I'm going to, in our webinar that I'm doing next week, and I think they can find information about that at your website, HawaiiHypnosis.org also. I'm doing a 4-week webinar where I really teach in detail, the content of those 6 sessions so that people can have a structure that's truly effective for long-term success. But I'm going to provide a lot of other resources like that you can, that people can actually give to their clients so their clients, can take action on what we teach them.
Since Richard brought that up, if you want to check out the teleseminar he's got or the webinar, you can go to hawaiihypnosis.org/weight loss. That's hawaiihypnosis.org/weight loss.
You're listening to the Hawaii Hypnosis Podcast. Can I ask you to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes by going to hawaiihypnosis.org/iTunes and give us a 5-star rating?
Now, Richard, what do you believe, or what have you found to be the most effective approaches for permanent weight loss?
Well, I found that and the research shows this. I mean, it's not, Richard discovered this. The research shows that what's most effective is a combination of increasing activity and increasing dietary choices that are nutrient dense, that are high in nutrient density. Now, there are a lot of different authors out there who have talked about nutrition as medicine. And every now and then I see on Facebook people tend to post this little quote. Sometimes they'll attribute it to Thomas Edison. Sometimes they'll attribute it to Einstein, or it's usually attributed to somebody, some famous, inventor or thinker or doctor or something. But everyone who's listening has probably seen this quote. And the quote says, "The doctor of the future will prescribe no medicine, but instead will use, nutrition and, natural foods to, effect cures and health." I don't know who really came up with that quote, but what I do know is that there's been a lot of current research, particularly in the last 10 to 15 years, on nutrient density and its impact. One of those authors is a guy named Joel Fuhrman. Joel Fuhrman is a family practice doctor who is a researcher who specializes in actually reversing disease with healthy dietary choices. There are some other authors as well. In fact, some of the people listening who might shop at the healthy food store like Whole Foods might even buy Dr. McDougall's soup. But Dr. John McDougall is not just a guy who markets soup at Whole Foods. He's actually an internal medicine doctor who's also done a tremendous amount of research on nutritional density, dietary choices, and long-term success. And there are other doctors as well who have been studying things from really the same perspective. And there's a foundation called eatrightamerica.org. And what eatrightamerica.org has done is they've really injected science into our, meal plan, if you will. And they've come up with a numerical score for each food product that's in the grocery store. And this is called the ANDI score, the Aggregate Nutrient Density Index. And what they've done is they've ranked food. So, for example, the highest score is a 1,000. In other words, the most nutritional density per calorie is in the foods that have 1,000. And that would be, collard greens or mustard greens or, whatever, kale, whatever's at the top of the list. Spinach is way up there, bok choy, 760 and 730. And, then you get down to, fruits and various vegetables. I think, radishes are 551, and then it goes in and it ranks a variety of different foods all the way down to a 1, which is a cola, a can of cola, and so on a 1, which has basically no nutritional value, versus 1,000. All the foods fall within here. Well, if anybody shops at Whole Foods, one of the things you'll notice on their fresh food bar and in their produce section is that a lot of the foods actually have, and in their dry goods section, actually have an ANDI score posted. It says, an ANDI score of 56 or ANDI score of 212 or whatever the ANDI score is, and unlike diets that have people count calories or count fats or count proteins or or subtract this or subtract that. The Andy score isn't about that. The Andy score is simply about the basic concept that you should choose the most nutritionally dense foods more often than the foods that are least nutritionally dense, and that a healthy diet isn't about becoming a vegan or a vegetarian, but primarily eating a plant-based diet, because that's what the healthiest foods are. But choosing, in all of your choices, to make choices based on the nutritional density per calorie. And that's an approach that I really try to use with my clients, to teach them these skills, to actually teach them how to shop, because a lot of people don't know how to shop. They shop like an American rather than a European, and that's not a real healthy thing. And so I teach them how to use the Andy score and how to understand the importance of nutritional density to get rid of toxic hunger, or to help them experience success.
One thing that we were talking about the other day, you and I were talking about on the phone, is how a lot of hypnotists are afraid of suggesting to their clients how they should eat, because of they're scared that they might get in trouble for it. What can you comment on that?
I think that a lot of times hypnosis training programs make hypnotists paranoid. And I think that a lot of hypnosis trainers are actually CYA. They'll say things like, never recommend anybody eat a particular food, because that would be becoming a dietitian. No, there's a big difference between providing education to a client who we're seeing and letting them make choices, and telling them, eat this to treat that. So, for example, a licensed dietitian says, you have diabetes. That is your diagnosis. And so I'm prescribing this diet for you. There's a big difference between that and saying to my client in my second or third session, let me share with you Eat Like America Foundation's research on nutrient density. Let me share with you a list of Andy scores. Let me teach you about the importance of making healthy food choices. And now I'm going to give you the hypnotic suggestion that you'll make the healthier choices more often than not in your daily choices. That is far different than prescribing to treat a condition. It's simply educating a client and helping them to make healthy choices. And and so I think that the only issue we run into is when we run into prescribing a diet to treat a condition rather than educating a client and giving them suggestions that they'll make healthy choices. I really do see these two different things. And by the way, let me go back for a second. I said something that I didn't expand on. I said it's not real healthy to shop like an American, and we should shop like a European. Let me tell you where that actually came from. I refer to the standard American diet as SAD. So that's the acronym for the standard American diet, SAD. And here's the way Americans typically shop. Okay, paydays on the 1st, paydays on the 15th. So they show up on the 1st and they show up on the 15th, and they take their cart and they go through the store and they look for all the big sales and they pack up their cart. And then they come home and they take their cart and they throw it all in the deep freeze and in our big refrigerator. And over the next week or two, they chow down on all the food they bought on payday. What they bought when they bought all that food that fits in the freezer is they bought a bunch of prepared, prepackaged, pre-poisoned foods that have very little nutritional density, and that's really contrasted with shopping like a European. When I was in Eastern Europe, one of the things that was interesting is because we had a tiny little refrigerator in the apartment rather than an American-sized refrigerator in the apartment, there really wasn't that much space. So every day at the end of the day, 4 or 5 o'clock, we would walk back to the apartment and we would walk back to the market. We would pick up the items that we were going to prepare for dinner that night, along with a few items for breakfast tomorrow. And we would do that every day. And what we were eating was fresh food, real food, not packaged food, not processed food, not prepared prepared food. We were actually eating real food, and we were buying it fresh at the market every afternoon and buying enough for the next morning, shopping 7 days a week rather than shopping, once a week or once every 2 weeks. And I think that our biggest problem in the standard American diet, SAD, is that we eat way too many processed food, frankenfood, food that wasn't food 100 years ago, versus fresh food. And simply by changing our shopping patterns, we can go a long way at really alleviating the obesogens that are in these frankenfoods that people actually become addicted to. Usually in my third or fourth or fifth, depending on the client I'm working with session, I'll really take a look at the foods they're addicted to. And I don't use that term as a metaphor or, for emotional impact, but because it's a reality. People actually go into withdrawal from the high fructose corn syrup. They go into withdrawal from the obesogens that are in the prepared foods that we eat. I posted on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. It was really pretty interesting. I was out of town, and I think my son, who tries to eat pretty healthy, he went to the store to buy some bread. And so he bought some Sara Lee wheat bread. It's 100% whole wheat. And so he bought that, of course, believing the wrapper, believing the package that this was healthy. I mean, it said, Sara Lee, 100% whole wheat bread, and it, had a picture of some, golden amber waves on the front. Why wouldn't this be healthy? And so I looked at it, and the the first ingredient was in fact whole wheat, but the second ingredient was high fructose corn syrup, an artificial toxic sweetener, and that was the number 2 ingredient in this whole wheat bread. Absolute junk food, absolutely, a poor choice when contrasted with what truly is a whole grain bread, and there really is. I have to teach my clients how to read labels because they see, the FDA lets people lie all the time. You see, no trans fats, but what the FDA actually lets food companies do is they actually let people label something as having 0 trans fat if the serving size is less than a half a gram. And so what they do is they take a small bag of something and they say it's 3 or 4 servings, even though we all know we would eat the whole bag of snack. And because 4 servings, because there's 2 grams of trans fat in it, that's the worst of the fats, they can get away with saying 0 trans fat. And so I actually have to teach my clients how to shop, how to read labels, how to, cut through what's meaningful and what's meaningless so that they can make healthy choices. And once I educate my clients and give them the suggestions to take action on those things, it becomes almost a game. I don't know if you've ever played a game like, the McDonald's Monopoly game or for those of people who are old like me, the S&H green stamp game, and every now and then you'd get an orange stamp that was worth 100 green stamps. And, those sort of things are kind of fun. It's kind of fun to, back in the day I collected Camel Cash back when I smoked. It was kind of fun, to see what you could get from these companies and, what kind of rewards you can collect. Right now, American Airlines has me strung out on their crack, the American Airlines Advantage program. I'm always living for miles, choosing my restaurants and, where I order flowers from and whatever else based on how many miles I'm getting. And so people like these games. And by teaching my client, not that this is a drudgery, but almost a contest with those who are out to destroy them, they actually have a lot of fun doing it. It becomes fun to change their lifestyle. I think that's a part of success.
Oh yeah, it seems like by having it a game, nobody likes to lose a game. It's plain and simple. People don't like to lose, and if they have any inkling that they can win, they're going to do their best to win it.
And people are losing the game now.
True.
with truly misleading labels, things like all natural, and that's a meaningless phrase. It doesn't have any impact on its nutritional density. Anytime, in fact, some of you who are Facebook active hypnotists, Zell's the stage hypnotist, I always enjoy his posts. He posted a picture today that I thought was pretty funny. Anytime you see a product that says low fat or no fat, you can just substitute,
poison,
toxic chemical concoction. Yeah, and so we see labels on things that really are misleading to people who want to make healthy choices. And when we educate clients on how to truly read a label, then they can make those choices. And we can couple all of this education with hypnotic suggestions for action. And my clients really enjoy that. So those are the kind of things I do with my clients.
I was going to ask you, with people, let's say you suggest to people to start eating more organic food, etc. A lot of people know that organic food can definitely cost a lot more. How have you found a way to be able to deal with that, with the high cost of organic?
Well, I don't. I personally choose organic food, but I don't tell my clients to buy organic or conventional food. I tell them to eat food that has a high nutritional density, and the Andy score is not broken down by organic or non-organic. In other words, an apple that is organic versus an apple that never had pesticides sprayed on it has the same nutritional value. An argument could be made that the organic is healthier for you. I believe it is, but then again, organic's not without risk either. There was just a story not too long ago about a guy who died from the worm shit that was on, some apple that he didn't wash that causes weird brain disease. Life is full of risk, but I don't get into it with my clients, the organic versus conventional food debate. What I do is I talk to them about nutritional density, and if they become serious about long-term changes, as my clients do, they tend to gravitate towards the organic side of things, always washing their fruits and vegetables very well. But for my clients, remember, they're 400 pounds. They're 45 years old. They've been ruled out as a candidate for bariatric surgery, or they've already had the bariatric surgery. I've had a lot of clients who've come in who gained 100 or 200 pounds, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years after having the surgery. The Al Rokers of the world, those who've been long-term successful, really aren't as plentiful as we would have thought. But my clients recognize that when they choose, to eat nutritionally dense food, it's really cheaper in the long run than hospital bills and missing out on the joys of life. The other thing is, and this is something that's really pretty interesting, the nutritionally dense food tends to be less expensive than those foods that are not as nutritionally dense. Prepared, prepackaged food like Twinkies or sponge cakes or something like that are actually more expensive per pound than something nutritional and awesome. For example, I had a couple of weeks ago, I just had this desire for something really sweet and yummy. I think I actually told this story once before in one of our phone conversations, so I won't dwell on it. But those cinnamon rolls from the airports, I just loved those things. And so I had come back from a trip where I didn't have a Cinnabon at the airport, but I still just really wanted something, sweet and, Cinnabon. And so I got on the internet and I hunted down a recipe for a vegan, carrot cake. And what I actually used for frosting was 100% pure Canadian maple syrup. Very sweet, very delicious. And simply drizzled some of that on top. And I made that with my 4-year-old stepdaughter. We had a blast making it, and it made a great dessert that night and a great substitute for cinnamon rolls in the morning. Now, maple syrup is still sugar, but unrefined sugar is healthier than the refined sugars we find in the prepackaged, pre-processed foods. And so the aggregate nutrient density of what I made was much higher than that of something that was bought from the store, and yet it was less expensive in the long run. And so I think that people, you don't have to shop at Whole Foods. I do. I shop at Whole Foods because it's near my office. If it wasn't near my office, I'd never go over there. I'm a convenience shopper. I'm not really, driving across town because it's Whole Foods, but because it happens to be next to my office. So it's easy to whip over there on the way home from my office. But I shop at the grocery store that's in my neighborhood. I can walk to it. And if it wasn't 110 degrees, I could walk to it. I buy food there all the time, and it's very reasonably priced. So I think most clients who say eating healthy is too expensive, that's just one of those excuses we need to overcome with both education, confrontation, and hypnotic suggestion.
It sounds like an easy excuse. I think I'm not that overweight. Ever since I quit smoking about a year ago, I've eaten a lot more Loco Mocos, and I've put on a couple pounds.
I was going to say, it's those Loco Mocos on the island.
Yeah, if you guys have never know what a Loco Moco is, it's 2 scoops of rice with a hamburger patty on top of it, egg on top of it, drizzled in gravy. Not drizzled, doused in gravy. They are pretty good.
And what's interesting is you can actually make a vegetarian or vegan high nutritional density Moco Loco. For example, white rice or fried rice, which is really white rice with soy sauce on it, is really the same as white bread. There's not a lot of nutritional value to it. But brown rice or rice blends or red rice or other types of rice like that can actually be a whole grain that has a very high nutritional density. And so I actually use Roger Moore's recipe for rice. Some of you know who Roger Moore is. He's got a great website. I think the website is slenderforlife.com. And he's got a recipe for adding various grains together to make Roger Moore's, rice concoction, and it's really darn good. So I usually call his recipes a brown rice. It's got some wild rice in there. It's got some other whole grains in there, quinoa, things like that. And I made a delicious. I'd never had one before. I'd never had like a mocha burger or a vegetarian burger at the store. The whole idea just sounded gross to me. But I saw one that actually looked good, and so because I like to cook, I actually found a recipe for a black bean burger that I could make at home, and it was really delicious. So you could actually make a Loco Moco.
Loco Moco.
Loco Moco, and actually have the same thing, but with high nutritional density foods, and so we don't have to give up what we enjoy. We just have to learn how to prepare those things in a way that's actually nutritionally dense. And I'm not, I happen to make some black bean burgers that were delicious, but tonight I had a cheeseburger. I drove to Fort Polk, Louisiana with my son, who had to report to his duty station in the U.S. Army. And he didn't have a lot of time. And because I generally make healthy food choices, it was okay for me to stop at Burger King with him and have a cheeseburger and fries tonight. Not what I normally choose to eat, but I was very happy making that choice tonight and eating that cheeseburger with my son, because being with my son was much more important than stressing out about, am I doing the right thing? And when we do what's best for us more often than not, then we can allow those knots to be a part of our life on occasion, and it doesn't become stressful. Oh, I blew my diet. I'm convinced a lot of people aren't successful in weight loss because they self-punish themselves because I blew it. I went to Burger King and I had a double Whopper with fake processed American cheese and a white bread bun with, fried onions and, that, mayonnaise chipotle sauce. No need to beat yourself up because, 9 times out of 10, I'm making the healthy choices rather than the unhealthy choices.
Yeah, that happened with me recently. So I quit. Like I said, I quit smoking for a year. I'd gone out, had a couple beers. I think it was like maybe about 3 weeks ago, and I smoked for about 2 or 3 days. And about the third day, my lung, it felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest, and I wasn't beating myself up. I was a little bummed, but I ended up doing a session and quit smoking again. So I wasn't gonna beat myself up over it.
Yep, exactly. And I think a lot of people really get frustrated and sort of give up on themselves. And there's absolutely no need to, because it's about making progress. It's not about perfection. And that's one of the reasons why I think I've had success with my clients. I follow a coaching model where my clients see me as being with them rather than being, the arbiter of,
you can do this. You can do this. You can't do that.
Yeah, last night I actually read a goodnight story to my 4-year-old stepdaughter, and so we'd gone to Barnes & Noble, and I had bought the book, what's the name of the book? The Little Engine That Could, right? I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And then he makes it over the big hill on the mountain. I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could. I want to encourage my clients. I want to change their thinking.
Now, Richard, so I know we're kind of running out of time. We have a couple minutes. What can you say about getting medical referrals?
One of the things that's really interesting is the bariatric surgery is becoming more and more popular. The actual bariatric surgery. That process is not without risk, and many clients who are obese are actually not candidates for the surgery for a variety of other reasons. And those doctors still want to be able to refer those people who aren't candidates for their work to people who can actually help them finish. So I think a lot of hypnotists think, I could never approach doctors who are doing bariatric surgery. Well, yes, you can, because they're looking for a place to send the people that aren't candidates for the services they provide. In addition to that, a lot of these bariatric surgeons actually understand that providing counseling and or hypnotherapy and or educational services to clients, both pre and post surgery, improves outcomes, and there can be a role for the hypnotist there. I actually had, and some of you know, I had foot surgery a few years ago, and I was sitting in my foot surgeon's office, and I had foot surgery because I probably had an old sports injury that had developed into arthritis over the years as I got old, and so that was how I ended up in the foot surgeon's office. But I started looking around his office. I'd never been a foot surgeon before, and I never even thought about this until 3 years ago. But my foot surgeon, by the way, his office building is probably about a half a mile from mine. I'm in an area where there's a lot of medical offices, and so his office is probably about half a mile down the street from my office. And I'd driven by it every day, but never even thought about a doctor of podiatry medicine, a DPM, foot surgeon. Never even thought about them in hypnosis. But I'm sitting there in his office, and I'm looking at his literature, and I realize the reason why people are in his office is because they need care for poor circulation related to diabetes, and that the majority of the work that he's doing is actually amputations of feet and toes because of unmanaged diabetes and poor circulation and smoking. He's got all this literature all over his office. And so I said to him, I said to him one day when I was sitting there, I said, I've been looking around your office and I realized that 80% of the patients who you have in your office probably are here because of poor eating and cigarette smoking. And he said, absolutely. I said, so, my office is just down the street, but I specialize in helping people lose weight. And I specialize in helping people quit smoking. And in the long run, could save your patients from a lot of pain. Now, a lot of hypnotists are real cynical. They go, why would the doctor refer to you? They want to make sure that, they get their slice of the pie. And if people, actually take care of themselves, then there won't be, foot amputations anymore, and he'll be out of business. Trust me, there are plenty of people out there who are never going to do what they need to do. And I think it's like a 6 or 8 week waiting period to get in to make an appointment with a guy. So there's plenty of people to continue the amputation business if some of his clients choose to get well. A lot of people in life just choose to stay stuck and not take responsibility for their own life, and will never follow through on the referrals that are made. But some of those do, and I've gotten some referrals from him. And so, I would encourage anyone who wants to deal with obesity and smoking cessation to actually market the DPMs, because I guarantee you no other hypnotists have ever thought about the DPMs as being a great referral resource.
This has been great today. Bunch of really good information, something that I'd never thought about.
We've done a couple of different teleseminars together, and that's the one thing I appreciate about whether you're doing a teleseminar with me or somebody else. You always really keep focused on actually providing content rather than pushing books or seminars or whatever else. But those who do want more information, I have hopefully provided some real answers and some real guidance today. But those who are interested in sort of taking it to the next level, at subliminalscience.com, the Success Fit program, as well as our upcoming webinar, are both available. And actually, you have a special deal for folks on Hawaii. What's the URL for the Hawaii Hypnosis link?
It's Hawaii Hypnosis. I'm sorry, it's hawaiihypnosis.org/weight loss. All one word. hawaiihypnosis.org/weight loss. And everybody that's listening to this, do me a favor, email me. It's Antonio at hawaiihypnosis.org, and I will get you a PDF of Richard Nongard's recipes book, the Success Fit program. Recipes in there look indescribable, to say the least. Look really, really good.
There's even a few YouTube videos of some of those recipes, so they can actually see them made.
Richard, do you have a couple minutes if anybody has some questions?
Yeah, I got to run here in a minute, but I got time for a couple of questions. I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Let me see. Unmute it. So everybody, I'm going to unmute it. So do me a favor and don't try to all run up at once. And don't try to be too polite that nobody talks. Let's see.
All callers are unmuted.
Hi, everybody who's unmuted. Anybody have a question? I'm more than happy to answer them. Sounds like I've answered all questions, Antonio.
I'm craving. You talked about the clients with the foods that they're addicted to, and I've found that sugar is really difficult.
Right. It is difficult.
Okay, good. I'm on then.
Yeah, one of the things that I do with my clients is I spend a lot of time teaching them mindfulness as a strategy for managing cravings. And I think that the detox from sugars, from refined sugars and artificial sugars, is the same as the detox from heroin, cocaine, nicotine, and caffeine. Okay? The good news is that it doesn't last forever. The bad news is I think a lot of hypnotists try to, I don't think they intentionally, they mislead their clients. Come to hypnosis and you'll have no cravings, no withdrawal. I see that all the time. Some clients do. The problem in life is not that life is difficult, that we have a craving or a desire or or a physical sensation that's distressing to us, life is full of that. The problem is that our clients don't know how to deal with it. So I teach them specific strategies for dealing with that. Sometimes it includes simply anchoring state to the physical feelings produced through a hypnotic induction. Sometimes I teach them the skill of mindfulness, which is about living in the present without attaching meaning to those cravings or to those uncomfortable feelings and sensations. And all of those strategies together, I think, can really help our clients to manage those, sugar cravings.
Thank you.
Sure. We could probably do a whole teleseminar someday, a whole hour just on the issue of addiction to obesogens. I am going to spend a lot of time in the webinar focusing on that. I think week 3 of the webinar, that's something we're specifically going to focus on because it is a big issue. And it's not just the high fructose corn syrups and the refined sugars and those sorts of things. It's actually chemicals that are produced in the process of manufacturing frankenfood. And it's even in the packaging of some of our foods. You'll see now that bottles are being pushed as BPA free. Well, the reason why is that BPAs, which are a type of a plastic product, actually seep into the foods that things are stored into, and it changes the endocrine system, and that's what regulates weight. And so these sorts of things are things that people actually become addicted to, chemicals that are in our food.
Yeah.
One thing I like is I'm not sure if you've seen it. I think I first saw it on a package recently where they don't call it natural foods, or it's not called like a natural ingredient. It's called nature identical. And apparently, nature identical is a term applied to an additive that's synthesized, but it's identical to something that occurs in nature. Which there's no way, in my opinion, there's no way you're going to get it to be identical to something in nature.
Yeah, and it's just a perfect example of, the government doesn't regulate these things. And remember, the government is put together by the people who are, the lobbyists who are selling all this stuff. I mean, I'm not a big conspiralist, okay? I mean, I'm really not that big of a conspiralist. But when it comes to our food, we've been lied to. The whole, 4 food groups was put together by the dairy industry, the cattle industry. I mean, it's not necessarily, the information we've had isn't necessarily accurate, and the labels are truly misleading. Nobody regulates these things. So when they say nature identical, what they really mean is this is full of artificial laboratory crap. And that would be, in my opinion, a perfect example of another misleading label, kind of like no trans fat in your, Oreo cookies.
Anybody else have some questions for Mr. Nongard?
And people can post any questions at my forum on Facebook, too. If you guys are not a member of the ICBCH group on Facebook, just go to icbchgroup.com. It'll take you to our forum on Facebook, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions there as well.
Okay, so it sounds like we got mostly everything covered. Richard, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to join me on this call.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Antonio, for hosting it. I appreciate you making these things available to people at Hawaii Hypnosis.
And everybody that's listening, you can subscribe to my newsletter at hawaiihypnosis.org. When you do that, you'll get a bunch of hypnosis training material for free, and you'll get instant access to all these upcoming teleseminars, etc. And just email me, and I'll give you that Success Fit PDF as soon as I can.
All right, well, take care, Antonio. Thanks a lot for the opportunity to talk to everyone. I appreciate it.
Mahalo, guys, very much.
Oh, definitely.
Mahalo, it's been great.
Thank you for joining.
I appreciate it. All right, take care. Bye.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thanks for listening to the Hawaii Hypnosis Podcast. Connect with us at facebook.com/Hawaii Hypnosis, twitter.com/Hawaii Hypnosis, and youtube.com/Hawaii Hypnosis.